Thank you for joining me. My name is Daniela. Tonight we're going to be discussing once again You're Not Going Crazy, You're Just Waking Up by Michael Murdad, the 5 stages of the soul transformation process. And tonight we're going to be discussing the dismantling process. And that's the beginning of the process. And at first, it's a soft whisper, say, your soul trying to get your attention. And when there's a need in your life for a change to take place and you are not acting on it, you're resisting, denying it, whether it be fear of being alone, fear of change. But sometimes it's not just the ending of a friendship or a relationship. It's also, it could be the loss of a job or a home. It's just not working for you. But when we resist, the soul's trying to get our attention. When we resist, it's like, are you going to do this the easy way or the hard way? And if you're going to do it the hard way because you're not making that change, it's like the cosmic 2x4. It will get you. Sooner that change will take place with you willingly or unwillingly. So it's easy for me to laugh at this now than at one time in my life. I've gone through this again several times. I do believe, though, now it's I'm quicker to recognize it and surrender and allow the process. So again, are you going to do it the easy way or the hard way? So when we resist, so you surrender and allow, or resist and fight the process. And this comes about, like I said, when there's a situation in your life that's stuck or stagnant, okay? So for too long. So some people stay in careers for too long or relationships for too long. So we're given an opportunity to change, but we don't take it. And I remember one thing, I think from 2014, I was definitely given the opportunity for something to drift away, to come to an end, and I resisted. I didn't realize the relationship was not for my highest and greatest good, so I resisted. One of the biggest mistakes of my life, I could easily say that. So in retrospect, I should have just surrendered, allowed the process to take place. That being said, I did learn a lot from it, so there's always a good silver lining. There's always a silver lining. So I'm glad, but I definitely, now in retrospect, it came to my attention that it could have been a lot simpler had I just allowed the process to take place in 2014. So let's see. So the dismantling period. It's usually a period, I'm sorry for laughing because it's so true. It's a period when things are taken away from you. Again, it could be losing a house, either through divorce or foreclosure. Same thing, the car accident, repo, the career. Like I've met so many people that hate their jobs, and then they get really upset when they lose their jobs, and I'm like, but you've hated that position for years. It's always interesting to me, like they kind of manifested that too. It was not a good fit for them, and yet they get very upset when they lose that position. Just something that I've noticed. So again, things being taken away from us, but it helps us to proceed on a journey. It's what's meant to be. It's no accident that these things are being taken away from us. And the second aspect is coming to terms with some things or relationships were not for our highest good. And I know that when I was younger, even looking back to my 20s, I had a hard time even letting friendships just slowly drift away from me. They were not for my highest and greatest good, and yet all of it felt like a death to me, and I resisted. And like I said, sooner or later these situations are going to come to an end, and they did. The relationships did come to an end, and I was far happier letting that happen in, I guess, an organic way. But that being said, I wish I would have learned that lesson in my 20s. And it may take time to be truthful and recognizing and accepting that certain people in my life, your life, are just not for your highest and greatest good. They don't want what's best for you. And they may be harmful to you. They may be toxic. And you know what? There are times when the combination of the two, I've seen in certain situations where I don't even recognize myself. The relationship is just not one that really is working. And it's just abrasive, not a good combination. So recognize that as well. We can be quite toxic as well. And right, you add one, we're not in a relationship by ourselves, and it's really best to take an honest look from like a bird's eye view and to see what we contribute to a situation as well. And like I said, I've seen my own actions and not recognize myself and even admit it. I'm like, I don't even know who this is. I don't recognize myself in certain scenarios. Okay, so being honest, like if you're not going to be honest with yourself, you're truly wasting your time. Because at the end of the day, we have to at least be honest with ourselves. I think we should be honest in situations, but some people cannot even look at themselves in the mirror. They cannot accept their own truths. So being honest and seeing clearly makes going through the dismantling stage of the soul transformation process so much easier. It truly does. And it also helps with the next time that you're going through it, because you just kind of just put that hat right back on, recognizing, okay, let me be truthful. I know I'm not particularly happy with this particular situation, and looking at it with those eyes through that lens and just going with it, surrendering. It makes it easier and a lot less painful when you approach it in that way. Because the second, third, fourth time, it really does. You start getting a pattern. You start understanding. And it's just allowing the process to take place. So if you fight it and resist, more pain, more discomfort. But if you surrender and allow, it's a more gentle process. And you observe it. You understand what's happening and you observe it. You kind of go with it. So, and this is a big, big thing. As you start recognizing that this is what's happening and you come to terms with, you know, the outcome is for your highest and greatest good. This is for your benefit. It's not happening to you. This is your soul understanding that you're not in a healthy situation and your soul is crying out. So you're an active participant. Huge mistake, by the way, to fight this process or to try to control it, to try to rush it because it's so uncomfortable. And that doesn't work. Let me just tell you, it does not work. And you want to stay in a present moment, be aware and learn as much as possible. And then the survival mode often pops in, and we try to alleviate the discomfort by either denying, minimizing, or quick fixes. Like some people will go into gambling, some people will get overly social, drinking, drugs, workaholics, you name it. Anything that in your past was your quick fix, people have a tendency to run towards that. Even binge watching, right? Because you don't have to think about it. And I would suggest allowing and loving yourself, allowing the situation and loving yourself and being kind to yourself. Recognizing what you're going through. Almost like a surgery, right? You wouldn't quick go run a marathon or anything. Like, believe it or not, drinking plenty of water, getting your rest as best as you can, eating healthy foods, being out in nature, getting exercise, that will all help you to feel better, self-care, as you're going through this challenging situation. And what else did I want to mention? And sometimes it's easier to recognize that the changes taking place are more external. Sometimes they're more internal, and sometimes just both. And as I said, things leave you. I don't know if I mentioned also, it could be your good health leaves you for a time. Because when you stay in situations that are not for your highest and greatest good, after a certain period of time, it does impact your health. So, one way or another, the universe will get your attention. So, it's just best to surrender and go with it. And once we start going through that, you know when you're starting to come out the other side, because then the emptiness kicks in. That's another chapter, but nonetheless, can knock your socks off. So, as I said, most people will reach for anything to help them feel better by distracting the process. And if you do that, if you distract yourself and distract the process, it actually can cause more harm to the whole situation and make it even longer. And believe it or not, like, some people even distract themselves, like diving into all these self-help books, religion hopping. Distracting yourself is not the way to go. Everybody has to go through this stage. Not this stage, well, yes, this stage just mentioning, but this process, one way or another, you're going to have to go through this. So to avoid it and distract yourself, I would not recommend. All right. So it's necessary for the process, and we need to be broken down to our bare and naked selves, because everything else is like an illusion or a mask. So you want to go through this to be able to see really deep down, who are you? What are you made of? And that makes the whole process worthwhile. I have to say, too many people aren't really sure who they are, and having everything sometimes taken away just so you could have a better idea of who you really are is well worth it. Think about having everything in the world right at your fingertips, but you have no idea who you are, what you stand for, just following the flow of the crowds and everything. Highly overrated. Huge truth. It's never impossible to learn unconditional love. But it is difficult to do it when we're immersed and entangled with everyone around us. All material things and tons of people, tons of noise, technology coming at us. We need the calm stillness to really get to this point. Look at how many people don't look up from their phones. And I've seen it where the social situations and their heads are still buried in a phone. It's just very interesting times that we live in. Big one, true. The things that you are most attached to will be taken away. And I know when it was my turn, it seemed like everything that I cared about was taken away from me, and I felt very alone and isolated. And I remember having lunch with somebody, a really cool person, I would say he's a spiritual mentor. He's a great guy. And he said to me after the process, he said, you know, that was necessary. Even your friendships had to be taken away from you because you needed to be alone, calm, and still to really come to your truth. And I totally agree. Painful. I resisted. I didn't understand it. It wasn't my first time. But apparently I didn't realize the part about surrendering and letting go and realizing that everything that happened was for my greatest good. So it did get prolonged, and it was amazingly painful. I think that last time I learned, because now it's just like, okay, what changes are coming now? So, like I said, It could be the loss of a car, friendships, home, jobs, health, marriages, just anything being taken away, or all of it being taken away. And many of us have experienced all of it being taken away. And please, if you take anything away from this, don't resist it, don't fight it, because what happens is if you delay it, even at a later date, it will be even more painful because an even bigger shift will come. So it's definitely a lot easier with the smaller shifts, like shift. I've been having cool shifts, not bad ones, where I feel like a different person, more changes. I actually got to the point, I don't want to say I'm addicted to change, but I really like it. I consider myself a little bit of a gypsy, but I like change. And I wonder at some point if I'll change again and then maybe want to settle to one place. But right now I'm enjoying traveling and I'm enjoying change. I enjoy meeting different people, having new experiences. But it's definitely a lighter lifestyle. So again, if you fight it and delay, the next shift is going to be bigger. It's almost like backed up or something, a bigger shift and more painful, more discomfort coming your way. So, and that's the other thing. People stay in bad situations for various reasons. Like I said, I've known people to hate their jobs, their marriages, and it's just like they stick with the status quo because it's familiar to them, and they rather stick with what is familiar than take the risk of change. Like, what if I end up not having another home? What if I can't get another job? What if I can't get another relationship? But what I find is every time we, what I call jump off the cliff, there's always exciting adventures, even better opportunities on the other side, right? It's just such a fun thing to do. And again, the soul knows when we are living in conflict, not pursuing our highest good, and that's when we get the cosmic 2x4. Anyway, it will get your attention one way or another. And again, even when you feel crazy, anxiety, displacement, like you don't feel like you're fitting in, the world is telling you that you're wrong. You're wrong, you're crazy, you're weird. Remember to use discernment, living out of your heart and your gut. Because when you're still and listening to your truth, your discernment, it's when you realize you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. And remember, most of the world is very much asleep. And they just want the status quo, and they want you to remain exactly the way that you always were. People are afraid of you changing, not just their own changes, but you changing, because as you change, it shifts their reality, and they're like, hey, makes other people uncomfortable. So people want everything to stay the same, even if it stinks, because it's familiar. And I just don't get that at all, because even if you change and you don't like the particular change, then change again. Not a big deal. But when people try to force you inside that box, I can't help but try to break loose. And I think a lot of us are like that. Stop trying to stuff us in a box and only see us through the lens of your eyes. No, use your own lenses. So remember, most of the world is asleep. We're not crazy. We're just awake. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you'd like more spiritual wisdom, sign on with subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you'd like a mediumship reading or a psychic reading or even a healing, go to my website www.danieladecastro.com. Many blessings to you. Bye.